Thanks, Goose. Hex, I am happy to admit that I love Star Trek, old and new, everything about it. I believe the reboot and movies are both very solid. I believe Star Trek is responsible for birthing modern sci-fi as we know it today, and it is perfect timing for a game to come in and knock it out of the park. Just not this one.
You're enjoying this, aren't you?
I assure you that I am not.
Sorry?
Even though this Star Trek game has its own story and is set between the two films, it still manages to feel like a rushed movie game. It's a cooperative shooter where you can play online or split screen as either Kirk or Spock. After a prologue where both are at each other's throats, the story goes back to the Enterprise embarking on a rescue mission to an experimental Vulcan power station sitting near two binary stars. I thought it was such an underwhelming intro, Barjo. I mean, I get that they're trying to build tension and be like, ooh, how do they get to that point? But then you're thrown into 3 seconds of cover shooter, then explosion.
Captain, grenade!
Back to the Enterprise.
It is your move, Captain.
Yeah, it's a bit confusing at first, but I like that whole intro. I thought it was very cinematic and, you know, Kirk and Spock are being Kirk and Spock.
Your choice was valid, Captain, but highly predictable.
Predictable? Since when have I ever been predictable?
That is precisely why the move was predictable, Captain.
Oh, yeah, that was all right.
All right. Well, the Vulcan race are trying their best to rebuild their civilization on a new planet. To speed up the process, they created a device called the Helios machine, but the station is remotely shut down and begins to be torn apart by the two stars. This first section is actually the tutorial, but it's full of some pretty solid co-op ideas, such as picking your way through this solar flare section in 3D space. I mean, it's nothing we haven't seen before, really, but it gave us hope that this might be better than what we've come to expect from a movie game.
Yeah, and there's some solid sci-fi ideas in here too, and sometimes that's all I need, especially if I'm already a fan. That's enough to get through it.
What's going on down there?
The radiation from those binary stars is making communications difficult.
And the cast from the films lend their voices to this game too.
They're operating on emergency power and are struggling to maintain altitude.
And that helps a lot, especially Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto playing Kirk and Spock.
Captain, in spite of your seemingly endless desire to stretch your legs, I must remind you that you are still a Starfleet captain.
But then I miss all the fun.
Plus, just like in the films, Chris and Zachary sound so much like Shatner and Nimoy, it just makes my heart skip a beat.
I will not leave this vessel until my crew is safely out of danger.
I like this one.
There are a few that you do not like, Captain.
Yeah, they do a great job. Unfortunately, as you progress, all the game's issues just become unforgivably frustrating, and all these problems really hamper your experience to the point where you just become really sad that it all went so wrong.
What the hell was that?
Problem number 1, tedious hacking minigames at every turn. If you're playing on your own with an AI, you can sometimes order him to hack things for you for most of them, which is a welcome relief.
Spock, hack that keypad.
I am bypassing the keypad's program controls.
But there are still mandatory co-op ones. Playing with the AI also has its downsides, though.
I must request permission to join you, Captain.
Spock, you sure that's within protocol? Time to waste. This way. You're a genius, Spock. Let's go.
Having a Vulcan as a member of your away team would be essential to the success of this mission.
This way.
I am the only one on this ship that has experience with the Helios machine.
All right. Great. Now there's 2 of you guys drive me nuts.
Spock sure does like to run, Barjo.
Yes, it's a comedy of AI errors. In fact, the glitches do help to keep things a bit entertaining, except when your AI partner is stuck somewhere and you can't progress, forcing you to restart the checkpoint.
Commander, I need your help with this system.
Playing with the AI does have one other advantage, though.
Over here.
You can order him to a location, which can help you work out how to actually get there. Even in the early missions, I struggled to know where to go, and I'm checking my tricorder every few seconds just to find the marker, and it shouldn't be like that. It's a classic case of poor level design.
It's infuriating, and it only gets worse. I mean, it goes to show how important clear direction and visual markers are for gamers to be pulled through a level. If you look at something like Dead Space, for example, you have to use your locator a fair bit to get an idea of your next objective, but much of the time the game is just subtly guiding you with light, enemies busting through doors, or just something to get your attention. Here you're just faced with samey-looking backgrounds and zones that just confuse you.
Yeah, it doesn't help that you're not having much fun either, so you just want to get there as soon as possible. The worst example of this is in this facility, so let's talk about that for a moment. You're instructed to deactivate 3 power cells. These are hidden under the floor, and using your tricorder, you can kind of follow the yellow lines to figure this out. But to get to these power cells, you have to find these hatches, which allow you to go down below and pull them out. The biggest problem is everything looks the same in this room, and as you can see in co-op, it's very difficult trying to work out where to go.
That worked. Let's keep moving.
In earlier parts of the game, they try to help you with audio cues to help you find your objective.
Captain, look up.
But here, we either missed it or there weren't any, and so we just ended up wandering for ages. And I'm still not sure if the way we actually did it is the way the game intended us to do it.
Like we mentioned before, this section is hampered a little bit by limited view and split screen, but really that's no excuse, and I think it speaks to the bigger problems of level design.
Absolutely. It took us 30 minutes to pull out 3 things and activate 1 thing and then leave the building. It was ridiculous.
30 minutes is a long time.
It's a long time. After this, we encountered a small underwater section, which was also quite fiddly and frustrating, and then the game just gets worse and worse from that point on, and finally wraps up.
It's such a shame, Barjo, because the cast do such a great job and the story is solid. It's also full of what should be exciting action sequences, such as where you go outside the ship here and use person-to-person teleporters to solve puzzles. Cool idea, but then it took us 5 or so minutes to figure out how these things actually worked, and then when they do work, they're fiddly and they only work on certain platforms. You die too often from things that don't feel like your fault, because you just can't quite make Spock and Kirk do what you want them to do.
Survival would be to attempt an escape from this vessel.
That's not gonna happen.
And this leaves the player feeling cheated and frustrated, like so.
Just like in this medical bay section.
Ah, my leg!
Here, you're meant to go to the medical bay to repair your broken leg or something, and Spock is actually stuck to you for the whole section. But if you get too close to a wall, you get stuck, and you feel like you're in this endless 3-point turn minigame. Once again, you can see what they're trying to do here, but it feels like nobody tested this section and they just said, all right, that'll do, let's move on.
Yeah, I mean, it really makes you appreciate games like Gears or even Army of Two that just have these standard mechanics so refined. Sadly, the combat doesn't save it either. There are a few perks and slick-looking sci-fi weapons, but enemy AI is pretty woeful. And while there are a few good enemy types, you'll want to drop things to easy just to make up for the poor shooting.
All in all, I feel like this game is suffering from a bit of premature sophistication, or perhaps it's just a bit over-ambitious, because there are all these pretty solid gameplay ideas, but not enough time has been spent on the detail, not enough time has been spent focusing on these mechanics to get them right to back it up.
Yeah, you know, and I think they deserve props for trying to make something more than just a bog-standard corridor shooter, but the basics need to come first, otherwise you're going to end up feeling like you're playing an old game, or that you've got some kind of handicap the whole time. It's an opportunity missed, and you get the sense that it could have been so much better with some polish instead of length.
The worst part is, Star Trek is such a big brand now, and they have so much right here. They've got a solid cast, they seem to have good assets, it's a good story, there's some nice visuals. I even like the enemy. The fact that there's Gorn as the enemy is pretty hilarious. There was even an epic ship battle.
She seems to be holding together, sir, but I don't know how much more of this she can take.
It's just that everything that is done badly in this game shouldn't be done badly in games anymore. I feel like this game needed someone to come in and just go, let's fix this, and then just do a whole bunch of QA, and then we might have actually had a pretty decent game.
Yeah, but that should be standard practice across all games. It's like saying this product shouldn't be broken before we try and sell it to people.
Yeah.
I mean, what I think is really upsetting is that this is such a rich and exciting universe with such a large and growing fan base that it really deserves to be explored. Sadly, though, this game didn't do it, so I'm giving it 3.5.
I'm giving it 3 out of 10.
Shall we finish the game later, or do you concede defeat?
You should know me better than that by now, Spock. I never concede.